everybody. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. We're so glad to have all of our schools back in session. Welcome back and Happy New Year to all of you. My name is Carlin Laraway. I am the Director of Assessment and Accountability with the State Department of Education. And we are ready to share some information with you today on our assessment system. But before we do, just a reminder, please submit all of your questions in the questions box. The PowerPoint slides are available, again, as a document. We've loaded them as a handout. And this presentation is being recorded and will be posted. We did have a delay in the posting of our December webinar, so if you missed that, look for that to be done in a few days. There was a technical glitch that's been resolved, but we will get that up. And this recording will also be posted hopefully next week. Just a reminder, this year we are not traveling the state for a Spring Roadshow, but we will be releasing modules to cover pre-test, during test, and post-test activities. We expect those to be available in February. We will cover all the ISAT relevant topics, including test information, test delivery, online reporting system. We'll have an updated IRI test administration manual and guidance document, information about SAT school day, and general topics such as the responsibility of our test coordinator and test security. So look for those. In lieu of a Spring Roadshow, we want to come out and visit you at the beginning of the school year. We've heard from folks that this is a better time for training to occur as you implement new features of our assessment system. You look at data and align that to planning for your school year. So our intention is to travel all 6 regions of the state, get to know our assessment and accountability team, and get to know all of you. This will be really directed to assessment coordinators with some specific relevant information about the entire assessment system. We'll also talk about accountability data and other information that you all feel is relevant that we can provide throughout the year. We'll capture that as well. We are looking for locations to host large group convening, and large group for us is typically 200 or 300 in the Boise area when we host our Treasure Valley Roadshow in the spring. But because we're focusing strictly on assessment directors, we think this will be a smaller venue or a smaller setting. So if you have space for 20 to 50, depending on the region, that you'd be willing to host a team and your colleagues in the field, we would love to come and visit and have you reach out and let me know. So send me an email and we'll work on that schedule and get that posted as soon as possible. Now I'm going to turn things over to our accountability team for some updates.
Good morning, this is Kevin Whitman. Wanted to start by talking a little bit about the engagement surveys. As a reminder, we're a little over a month away now from our student, parent, and staff engagement surveys opening for this school year. And they're going to be open from February 18th through March 31st, 2020. And for the student survey, we have submitted the initial student rosters to our survey vendor, Cognia, which you may know is the former Advanced Ed. And that's going to be based on your December IC upload. So thank you everyone for getting those in on time. We're going to be sharing a little bit more guidance about the student survey soon. The big item is a recorded webinar that goes through the roster management and administration process for the survey. And that was actually just posted on our website yesterday. So our next slide will have that URL. The parent and staff surveys are going to remain the same this year, where we email out custom survey links to superintendents and charter administrators. So that process will look the same. Please stay tuned to our newsletter and that survey page URL there, where you can find that new webinar on administering the student survey. And we've added some new FAQs as well, and we're going to keep adding more content there to assist you during the process. One other thing we wanted to mention was a new growth resource. In our previous webinar, we shared a table that summarized scale score growth in 2019 on the ISAT and ELA and math. We've gone ahead and posted an updated version of this resource, and it's at the URL listed here. So this includes the 10th, 25th, 50th, 75th, and 90th percentile values for scale score growth last year. And they're separated out by subject, grade, and the starting proficiency level. We've added in 10th grade student information, and so that has growth occurring from 8th grade in 2017 to 10th grade in 2019. And these values give you a sense of where the growth you're seeing in your students might fall relative to their peers. So it's just a nice resource for you to look at to get a sense of the patterns that we see across the state. And now I'll turn it over to Andrew.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's Andrew Bennett here, giving you some updates on the ALPA test that's coming up this month. So if you haven't heard already, in late spring of 2020, the WIDA ELD Standards 2020 edition is scheduled for release. And although the 5 original standard statements are not changing, the tools to interpret and use the standards for instructional purposes are getting a makeover. To gain feedback on how well the new resources combine language use within specific content areas, it is encouraged that all stakeholders, including language specialists, content area, classroom teachers, and administrators, participate in an initial review of the draft resources and complete a survey. Providing your valuable input will refine how these resources can be improved to meet the specific needs of Idaho ELDs and ELD stakeholders. All feedback is needed to be submitted by January 20th, 2020, so please get that information out to your constituents. Okay, mark your calendars if you have not already done so. The access test window will be open January 27th and end on March 6, 2020. As a reminder, during the test window, all current English learners with an L status of L1, LE, or EW must take all 4 sections of the test. It is recommended that districts use the time between March 2nd and March 6th as a makeup window, and for any students who need to complete any of the remaining language domains. All test materials will need to be sent back to DRC no later than on Friday, March 13th, 2020. Districts have the option of sending test materials back to DRC once all testing is complete. Student information and generic test sessions are now available in WIDA AMS. Yay! District test coordinators are now able to change or create new test sessions to 4 different language domains. They can add newly identified English learners within WIDA AMS and add accommodations to individual students based on a documented need. So please check it out. Districts will receive their initial access material orders on Tuesday, January 14th. Materials will need to be signed for once they arrive at the district offices. It is recommended that districts inventory all materials before they are disseminated to schools within the district. And if the district material overage amount is not sufficient, districts may submit 1 additional materials order between January 14th and February 28th. So make sure you're opening those boxes and seeing how many materials you are actually receiving. All right, now is the perfect time to review the Test Administration Manual and District Test Coordinator Manual prior to testing to review the best practices around pre, during, and post-access test administration processes and activities. These manuals, along with other videos, tutorials, and resources, can be found within the WIDA Secure Portal. If you do not have an account, please contact WIDA Client Services, or you may reach out to me. I am happy to help. So in preparation for the 2020 Access Administration, districts and schools should consider the following when planning for a successful test administration. First, districts and schools should consistently check ELMs to verify all ELs are accounted for and have been placed into a test session within WIDA AMS. Second, district test coordinators need to confirm that all staff administering or handling test materials have been certified to administer the WIDA Access test. District test coordinators can check if TAs have completed the training within the WIDA Secure Portal under Account Management and Training Status icon. Third, IEP and school teams should begin the discussion or finalize that discussion of what administrative considerations and/or accommodations should be assigned to individual students based on current instructional supports being used that will allow the students equitable access to the language proficiency assessment. Last, students should be aware of dates and times they will be testing. It is always advisable to familiarize students with the structure of the test and give them multiple opportunities to interface with practice items. Students and teachers can access practice questions through the Insight browser or by going to the WIDA AMS main page and scrolling down to the bottom. Test administrators, school test coordinators, technology coordinators, and district test coordinators are all encouraged to participate in the webinar supplied by WIDA and the ALPA team. And the next webinar is scheduled for January 9th, which is tomorrow, and will provide instructions on managing test materials for the paper version of the Access. A complete list of scheduled webinars, along with the links to join them, can be found on the English Language Proficiency Assessment webpage under the Training tab. We hope to see you there.
We do have one question. What is the cutoff date to test a newly enrolled ELD student in Access?
That's a great question. If a student is identified by February 28th, they will need to test by March 6th. Remember that you have 30 days to identify a student. and it is encouraged that you use the time necessary to identify all L's in the state.
Okay, it's my turn. This is Karen Striegel. Happy decade, everybody. I have organized my topics from most to least pressing. Since the Idaho Alternate Assessment Science Portfolio testing window opened on Monday, January 6th, it makes sense to start here. The window closes at 5 p.m. on Monday, April 6th. The IDAA Science Portfolio resource on the Idaho Training Clearinghouse contains the assessment and IPASS manuals, as well as short tutorials on different components of the assessment. The first tutorial in the series had to be re-recorded to include the updated Idaho Alternate Assessment participation criteria and timelines. It's just waiting for closed captioning by ITC staff, and then it will be posted with the other videos. I got an email from Tessa this morning. She was going to work on it today, and it might be up today. If you have not already done so, you should be adding teachers and students to IPASS. I know some of you have had some issues adding teachers because they are not mapped. If this is the case, you need to submit an Otis ticket that includes the teacher's EDU ID and their district email address. These last 4 bullets list the activities that teachers can and should be doing now that the test window is opened. Directions for completing all of these activities are detailed in the Idaho Alternate Assessment Science Portfolio Manual and the tutorials in the IDAA Science Portfolio resource on the Idaho Training Clearinghouse. It seems like teachers have a lot of time to complete student portfolios in IPASS, but April 6th will be here before we know it. I will be sharing updates on the status of student portfolios in IPASS in assessment newsletters and webinars until the test window closes on Monday, April 6th at 5 p.m. Here are data as of Monday, January 6th. I'll give you a moment to read these for yourself. You can see that 23 LEAs have added students to the IPASS application, and we have 89 days left in the testing window. In case you forgot, repetition is an aid to memory. The testing window closes at 5 o'clock p.m. on April 6th, which is a Monday. You have heard me talking about the new Idaho Alternate Assessment for ELA Literacy and Math that will be administered as operational field tests this spring. I've been talking about this since last year. First, I'll talk about a couple of exciting new features. All stimuli, items, and answer options will have human voice recordings. This means that the teacher will not be reading the test aloud as they did on the previous Idaho Alternate Assessment. Students who need to have the test read aloud by a familiar adult may have this accommodation as long as this accommodation is documented in the student's IEP. How will you know if a student needs the test read by a familiar adult, you may ask? By having the student practice with the South Carolina practice test. More on the practice test in a minute. The other exciting new feature is that the Idaho Alternate Assessment and ELA Literacy and Math are computer adaptive, just like the ISAT. As with any new assessment, students taking the Idaho Alternate Assessment and ELA Literacy and Math should have opportunities to practice with the testing platform and format before test day. Giving students opportunities with the practice test will be essential to their success. We have a couple of new processes this spring as well. There will be changes to the process for applying the early stopping rule for students who do not have a consistent, observable way to communicate and respond to test items. The new process will ensure the early stopping rule is applied accurately and consistently across the state. The other new process is related to paper test materials. The only part of the alternate assessment available in print will be the answer choices. Students who need printed answer choices will have a fixed form version of the test online, accessing all stimuli and items in the online format and using the human voice recordings. Then choose their answer using the printed answer choices. The teacher or test proctor will record the student's answers on a separate answer document, then enter the student responses using the data entry interface. How will you know if a student needs printer answer choices? By administering the practice test. Everybody breathe. Tell your teachers to breathe. AIR, or Cambium, is the new name of the vendor, and I are in the process of designing training materials and tutorials even as we listen to this webinar. Speaking of practice tests, This slide references the South Carolina practice test that I've been talking about and writing about since August. I am not going to talk about the practice test in great details, except to say that the practice tests are computer adaptive, available in all grades in ELA and math, and have the human voice recordings that students will experience during the spring test administration. Please encourage teachers to give students the opportunity to practice with the practice before test day. The practice test will show students what to expect during testing and help teachers and IEP teams know if the student needs a familiar reader and/or printed answer choices before test day. As many of you know, Spring 2020 is the final administration of the Idaho Alternate Assessment Science Portfolio based on the old Science Extended Content Standards. Woohoo! New Science Extended Content Standards were adopted by the State Board of Education in July and are pending legislative approval during this legislative session. If the new science content standards are approved, teachers will receive training in the new standards in fall 2020, followed by independent field testing of the new computer adaptive alternate assessments in science next spring. We will be submitting a waiver for reporting the spring 2021 scores. The new Idaho alternate assessment in science will have its operational field testing in spring 2022, followed by standard setting in the summer, with scores being reported in late summer or early fall 2022. That's a lot to take in. Breathing is good. And there's a question.
What is the timeline for applying for paper testing on the ALT?
Oh, to receive the paper answer choices, we got an email about, it got posted, an announcement got posted on the ISAT portal yesterday. I think it's open February 8th through like early March. And as we've done in the past, if you're requesting paper answer choices for a student taking the alternate assessment, I will be vetting those requests. So if you need that, expect a call from me. We'll have a conversation. Got to be in the student's IEP, and then we'll move forward from there.
Second question. Will there be student results from the new IDAA, ELA, literacy, and math field test?
I'm going to let Carlin answer that.
That question comes from Marcia Grabo. Marcia, yes, the answer to that question, we will be releasing scores this year, but they will be delayed. We had an embedded field test of the alternate assessment items in English language arts and math last year. So the test has been through the field testing process. This is an operational field test year, so we will delay the release of alternate assessment scores in ELA and math until late summer, early fall 2020 for our English language arts and math alternate assessment. And we can provide more details in that in our next newsletter and our next webinar update.
Yep. Did I hear you say that this 2020 ELA math alt test is a field test?
It's an operational field test, which means we will report scores because students have seen the independent or embedded field test items last year.
All right.
All right.
So, thank you for listening and breathing. As always, please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions.
All right, now we're going to turn things over to Kevin Chandler for an update on science.
Good morning, everyone. It's Kevin Chandler. Just a few updates for science. Remember, it bears repeating that the grade levels for ISAT science testing in 2020 have been set. At elementary, we're going to keep it at grade 5. At middle, it's been moved to 8. And high school, it's at grade 11.
May I interject here, please?
Sure.
The science alternate assessment portfolio is not these grades. It's 5, 7, and 10. Thank you, Kevin.
Sure. Just a quick update on the reporting waiver. We did submit a temporary accountability waiver for some of the provisions in ESSA. Just a reminder here, that waiver is going to allow us to administer the new assessment in lieu of the old one, and also exempt us from reporting the results in spring 2020. That waiver is currently with the US DOE, and we're expecting feedback on that by the end of February. A couple updates on some new resources that have been posted. Remember, we have our new science sample test. You can log in a guest user under a guest session, and you can check which scoring assertions you got correct while you're actually taking the test. And we also have some answer keys posted for those sample training tests. Those are posted on the ISAT portal. Just a quick update on our interims. Remember, we do have interims available right now. Currently available, we have 14 elementary, 19 middle, and 20 high school. For the answer keys for those, we're expecting those to be posted the week of January 20th. and that those are going to be stored under the general resources in TIE. A couple updates. Remember, our Spring 2020 ISAT Science test is going to be a field test. It's going to be a new assessment, and remember, no scores are going to be reported depending on the US DOE waiver. A couple other updates on some resources. I mentioned this one at our last webinar, modeling the Idaho State Science Standards, or ISSS, as I like to call them. These are some resources that kind of break down how all three of those dimensions fit together, and also has a very elegant explanation for what that figure means that you're currently looking at. If you don't have time to read the entire 38-page manual there, I also created some one-pagers that kind of break down some quick charts and graphs for how those particular dimensions fit together. That's also available on the ISAT portal. Also want to tout a couple of other resources as well. Introduction to the new ISAT Science test. We have some blueprints also available. And I'm getting a couple of questions, of course, about testing time, the new assessment. I have a chart that breaks down some testing time estimates. That's also available on the SD website. Any questions?
All 11th take the test, correct? Our high school counselor wanted to be sure that students that did EOC as 10th grade last year are still required to test.
Yes, that is an excellent question. Yes, so those lucky students, even if they took the EOC last year as 10th graders or sophomores, they still are going to be required to take the ISAT Science test at grade 11.
This is Carlin. Just a reminder that despite the fact that we may receive our waiver from the U.S. Department of Education in lieu of reporting scores, we are still required to test 95% of students, and that is all students and all student subgroups. So be sure to check your student rosters. Those students enrolled by the first Friday in May should all be assessed. I'm going to give this over to Kevin for an ISAT update as well.
Hey guys, I'm back. So just a couple of updates for ISAT. Our sample and training test scoring guides have been posted on the ISAT portal. The scoring guides are for grades 3 through 11 and are in both subjects, ELA literacy and math. Remember, you can administer the sample training test via the application on the ISAT portal. Quick update on some accessibility resources. A really handy guide here is up there at the top, accessibility resource comparison. That's going to be updates on the accessibility resources between the last 2 school years. Be sure you download that, take a look at that. We also have our handy-dandy usability, accessibility, and accommodations guidelines, or the UOG, as we like to refer to it. Please review that prior to testing to ensure any kind of appropriate tool use done for ISAT testing. And of course, we have lots of other resources on accessibility and accommodations in that folder on the ISAT portal. For our digital library, it bears repeating that, remember, the Smarter Balanced Digital Library sign-in and the ISAT portal sign-in systems have been integrated. So if you have a login system for the ISAT portal, you will now automatically have a sign-in for the Smarter Balanced Digital Library. Lots of great resources posted there. Be sure to check them out. Speaking of the digital library, SDE is working to create an SNE, or a state network of educators. So the resources that are posted in the digital library actually come from educators from across the country that are involved with the Smarter Balanced Consortium. These workshops are held throughout the year, a couple of other locations throughout the country. Quick breakdown of how those live workshops work is listed there. If you would like to be considered for inclusion in that SNE, we have a SNE sign-up form located at the link there. Please sign up. We'd like to build our SNE here in Idaho. A couple of important upcoming dates. The paper test window has been open. It's going to be open from now until March 3rd, and our highly anticipated Test Administration Manual, or TAM, for our summative testing, that's going to be available on February 3. I said summative testing, that's going to be opened up on March 15th. Be here before you know it. We'll available through our ISAT portal as well. Any ISAT questions?
So 10th grade this year do not need the science test.
That is correct, yes. For high school, ISAT Science has moved to grade 11.
Okay, and now that 11th graders are taking the new science assessment, are the ELA and math assessments being administered in 11th grade as well, or are they still being administered to all 10th graders?
No change for when the ELA and math are being assessed.
That is, by rule, our accountability grade levels for English Language Arts and math are grade 10. Science assessment, although reported as part of accountability, is not administered as an accountability assessment for identifying schools for performance. So that is the shift to grade 11 for the science assessment. Right now, we'll turn things over to Elena for an IRI update.
Good afternoon. Time to talk IRI. It is that time of year when there is an optional winter IRI administration. Many districts across the state are already progress monitoring students on a regular basis and have administered or have scheduled a winter assessment. We encourage you to do that. There are several reasons why. One being that we really want to measure mid-year progress toward end-of-the-year goals for our K-3 students. It's also a way to measure mid-year progress and look at the very plethora of reports available, measure percentile rank growth for individual students, for groups of students, at grade level and at the classroom level. There are two specific reports that I want to point out that show growth and rate of improvement over time. The rate of improvement report compares a student's past assessment performance to that of their peers across multiple months. Please note that a student must be assessed in 3 distinct months before that rate of improvement report will be populated and rate of improvement can be calculated. An additional report to review at this time of the year is the skill growth report. Growth can be tracked on this report at a classroom level and at a student level for overall reading and within each subtest. I'll share later in my slides where to find resources that will support you in reviewing and understanding these reports within Istation. This was shared in December, but I wanted to reiterate. There is a new rostering requirement in Istation that is effective immediately. This change will only impact newly rostered students for the 1920 school year, as well as the school year 2020-2021 uploads that will happen this fall. Districts and schools do not need to go into Istation and add date of birth to previously rostered students. From this point on, if the date of birth is not included when entering, you will receive an error message and be prompted to enter date of birth. This is an important change because the assessment and accountability team uses the student EDU ID to match assessment records, but in cases of duplicate EDU IDs or invalid EDU IDs, we rely on other information, such as date of birth, to match student assessment records to IC data. There is one technology update we want you to be aware of that will affect IRI beginning in summer 2020, so this upcoming summer. Istation is discontinuing their support of the Chromebook app due to Google no longer providing support for these types of apps. We have worked with Istation and we have 2 options for you. The first is Chromebooks that can support Android apps should run the Google Play version of the Istation app. Option 2 is to assess students using a web browser at isip.istation.com. More detailed information will be sent out to district technology contacts and shared in upcoming newsletters as well as future webinars. New for 2020, the SD IRI page has been upgraded. You'll find many new resources and informational links that can support all levels of staff to administer and utilize IRI data effectively. This is where you'll find those detailed one-pagers that explain rate of improvement and goal setting in Istation. I would encourage you to visit the page and share your feedback with me. If there are additional resources you would love to have included, reach out to me via email. We want to provide you with all the resources and supports you need to successfully administer and use your IRI data to drive instructional decision making. Also in 2020, coming soon, an updated IRI administration manual for spring 2020 and guidance on administering IRI to students with low incidence disabilities, including students who are deaf and hard of hearing and blind and visually impaired. Lastly, a quick reminder that spring IRI testing window will open May 1st and close May 29th of this year. Questions?
No questions.
All right.
So we'll turn things over to Ayaka for a college entrance exam update.
Hi everyone, this is Ayaka. First, TSAT closing activities, fee waiver, and grade level adjustment are due this Friday on the 10th. You'll receive an invoice from College Board for non-10th grade participants in mid-January. Please contact the TSAT School Day Support if you have any questions regarding a fee waiver, grade level adjustment, or invoicing. SAT book registration is open now until the 15th. Please make sure you have accurate data and meet the deadline. as College Board will not accept any late submissions, resubmissions, or retractions. STE will use the bulk registration data to match scores to the IC data. If you have not received the bulk registration email from College Board, please let me know as soon as possible. Seniors who need to take SAT to fulfill their graduation requirement can participate in SAT this year. Please make sure to upload them as a senior during the bulk registration process. Sophomores who are graduating early may choose to take SAT this year. Please make sure to upload them as juniors during the bulk registration process. As a reminder, the state pays for one SAT administration for each student. If you want to provide retake opportunities to your students, it has to be done outside of the SAT school day administration. Optional essay. Students interested in participating in the optional essay must register themselves in their College Board account from January 27th to February 5th. Please assist your students through the registration process by providing instructions and reminders. You may want to use the attached webinar as a resource. Meanwhile, I found a reference to a flyer in the last year's webinar, and I will follow up with the College Board on the flyer. College Board is hosting a free SAT school day preparation workshop and parent info night at various locations throughout the state. If you're interested in participating in the workshop, please register yourself using the link above. More information will be provided by the College Board. And here are some key date reminders that you can see on the screen. And all recorded webinars and SAT School Day Manual will be posted on our website.
Okay, we don't have any other questions, but we'll hang on the line for just a minute as we close things out. If you have any other questions now about any of our topics or anything we did not cover, please enter them now. If you missed the opportunity to enter your questions in our questions box, of course, you can always email any of us on the team anytime, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Just a reminder, our next webinar is Wednesday, February 12th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and you can register for that webinar at the link there or on our assessment and accountability webpage. And if you have any final questions, we don't see any. So we thank you all for joining us and appreciate having you all back, and we look forward to working with you to support the Spring Test Administration. Have a wonderful day, everyone.